The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's webinar on insights and opportunities in India's waste to energy sector. It Just to start with, I will also like to welcome all our eminent speakers today. Mr. Anu Barapatre, Mr. Ashish Kumar from ESC, Mr. Saurabh Datta from Invest India. Unfortunately, Manish Chauhan from Embassy of India is not able to join due to technical issues at Embassy of India. So I'll take over the welcome remarks and introduction of Make in India Middle Stand program. So Make in India Middle Stand program is an initiative of Embassy of India Berlin, which is driven by Government of India's national program Make in India. It was initiated in 2015 to support German Mittelstand and family-owned enterprises investing in India. We have various partners onboarded, which are helping member companies to invest in India hassle-free and with addressing all the challenges they are facing in Indian market, which includes the state government partners like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Punjab, and also there is Invest India, who is a facilitation partner, which is a central agency to implement the, or let's say facilitate the investments coming from abroad. We also have knowledge partner Eurassia Consulting, who is a management consulting firm based out of Munich, which I am representing today. Tax and legal partners like Heather & Co, Rodan Partner, banking partners like Deutsche Bank, KfW, State Bank of India, and also a Chamber of Commerce, Indo-German Chamber of Commerce as a partner. Technology partner Geeta from India. These partners help companies to address all the relevant queries when it comes to the investing or expanding in India through the hotline email account, which is miam@indianembassy.de. We also conduct various workshops and webinars regularly for the enrolled or also the non-member companies on the various topics relevant to the, let's say, market entry and the expansion, tax and legal, banking topics. Also, we conduct customized workshops for our member companies on the specific requirements of companies. If company want to, let's say, understand uh, any specific topic which can be a bottleneck or which can be just an understanding to take a decision into to invest in India, we conduct that workshops for them free of cost. And then we also have Exchange platform, which are networking platform for the our member companies and our non-member companies as well, which we have not conducted last year because of the COVID-19, and also the workshops have been not conducted last year due to COVID-19 or this year due to COVID situation. But what we are doing right now is we are conducting 2 webinars per month to address, or let's say to facilitate investment and so to address the queries of our member companies or whoever is interested in India for the investment. As of we have entered into 6th year, and we have 151 member companies onboarded with overall turnover of around 88 billion euros, which have declared investment of around 1.4 billion euro, and having which includes the 68 manufacturing plants, 29 expansion, and 27 subsidiaries. It We have handled around more than 380 queries online through our email, which include tax and legal queries or even the banking topics and the the market related queries, licensing topics. We have also conducted more than 100 workshops. We have conducted more than 45 webinars now, and out of this 1.4 billion euro, 447 has been already implemented. 488 million euro is under progress, which includes 14 manufacturing plants, 3 expansions, and 1 subsidiary setup. With that, we would like to start with our today's topic, the presentation from EAC, India's waste to energy sector, which will be presented by myself and my colleague Anup Barapatre from EAC. So as I mentioned, EAC is a knowledge partner of just to give you a quick introduction of EAC is it's a knowledge partner of Indian Embassy for this program since 2015, and it's a management consulting firm headquartered in Munich. We also have offices in Shanghai, Mumbai, and Moscow. Key focus of consulting is strategy, M&A, and operational excellence, and also uh, digitalization and sustainability has been included as per the industrial trends in last 5 years. The focus on regions would be China, India, Southeast Asia, Northeast Asia, Russia, and Central Eastern Europe. Industrial competencies include industrial mobility, building and construction, energy and environment, which basically me and Anup is representing this industry today, and pharma and healthcare, chemicals, consumer goods, and exhibition. Now, coming to the topic, waste to energy sector and the opportunities in India. I'll be covering the waste to energy sector, municipal solid waste, and my colleague Anup will cover the biomass sector. To start with waste to energy sector overview, we the biomass and municipal solid waste, these are the two segments which are exhibiting investment opportunities in India with overall potential of 26 gigawatt. If you look at the total estimated energy potential in India, is estimated at 30 gigawatts, which includes 25 gigawatts coming from biomass and 1.2 gigawatt coming from municipal solid waste, and 4.5 gigawatt coming from the industries, and which also includes the liquid waste generated by various industries. Biomass, India is currently focusing on compressed biogas majorly, and biofuels is still at nascent stage, but we still see lots of investment coming in, and also few players are producing biofuels at various parts of India. Municipal solid waste, which is let's say a very new, let's say it's a 20 municipal solid waste to energy industry is let's say industry of 20 years old. It got momentum post India introduced municipal solid waste regulations in 2000. We have technologies which covers wet organics and dry organics, composting, anaerobic digestion, incineration, idea pelletization. These are mostly used technologies in India. And fermentation and gasification, these are still let's say we have not seen many cases of these in India. To proceed with the relevance why we are talking about it, I'll also ask my colleague Anup to add wherever possible on this slide to elaborate on the trends. The smart cities, with which is one of the mega trend in India right now, which highlights the usage, or let's say the importance of waste to energy, how urban authorities are trying to handle, or let's say managing their waste, which is one of the major issue right now. And also the alternate fuels, which is also a mega trend, which gives, or let's say which have the which establish the importance of having a distributed generation by different fuels across India. I also like to invite Anup to give some, let's say, throw some light on the other trends in India and why we are, let's say, talking about waste to energy sector today in this webinar.
Hello, everybody. Just to quickly highlight some of the key aspects when we look at the waste to energy sector in India and what are the mega trends. One of it being mainly is from a smart cities perspective, wherein we talk about a lot of waste management that comes into picture, and this then further being pulled out from waste management. So you start off with waste collection, you get into segregation, and then you get into the treatment process. So this all comes under the ambit of smart cities, which is one of the key areas that the government of India is looking at. While we look at it from an alternate fuels perspective, India definitely is a significant importer, I would say, of fossil fuels, and here's where alternate fuels in terms of compressed biogas is a potential replacement to CNG or compressed natural gas. Distributed generation in terms of it's more from a perspective of municipal solid waste, wherein you can have small plants which can then be integrated into a smart city in itself. And finally, O&M outsourcing, which comes out as a major business in terms of operating and maintaining these small size distributed generation plants as well. Over to you, Ketan.
Yeah, thank you, Anup. Now moving on to the municipal solid waste overview in India, what we estimate is the total municipal solid waste generated in India is around 90 million tons per annum, which the composition of is estimated at, let's say, biodegradable components are 40 to 50%, whereas recyclable components or ingredient components are accounts for 10 to 20% of it, and then inerts accounts for 30 to 50% of the waste. Biodegradables, of course, coming from food and kitchen, household, restaurant, malls, and vegetable markets, uh, and which is basically a primary source for municipal solid waste, around 70 to 80% of it, and then remaining 30% comes from the open areas like dump grounds, creek slides, and sea beaches, national parks. Yeah, the overall treatment capacity in India right now is only 23%. This is what we treat. 75 to 80% of total MSW is collected, and out of which 23% is treated right now. If you look at the technologies which are currently used in India, as I mentioned earlier, it's for wet organics we are mostly used composting and anaerobic digestion, whereas for dry organics we are using the incineration, which is mostly, let's say, widely used in India, but not the right choice when it, or let's say not managed it very properly. RDF pelletization is also used in, let's say, it's also used in the waste to energy plants. We have around 100 megawatt, uh, 95 to 100 megawatt of plants already established in India, which are municipal solid waste, which are generating energy from municipal solid waste using also the RDF pelletization technologies. Overall estimated potential is around 1.3 gigawatts for coming from which can come from the municipal solid waste. Though, as I mentioned, this industry is not very old, it's only 20 years. So, we have lots of stories wherein the municipal solid waste plants from energy started, and then then it had to shut down because of the environmental issues, because of the management of, let's say, the fly ash and the emissions. Yeah. So, but still, people are, let's say, industry is still in the learning phase, and we have seen also the success stories wherein now India is commissioned the one of the largest municipal solid waste to energy plant in Delhi, 24 gigawatt, 24 megawatt plant by Ramke engineers, Enviro engineers, and it has been it's running smoothly as of now. So, coming to the challenges and the growth indicators, why we think this is the attractive industry to invest. As on the left hand side, you will see the challenges. These has been the challenges we asked, which we also discussed with the industry experts and from the with the investors, that the consistency of RDF calorific value is not there. There are lots of issues faced by industries and the new investors, that the quality of RDF is not, let's say, delivered as promised. So that's one of the issue. The issue of handling emissions and effluent by the existing MSW to energy plants, which is, let's say, which is forcing them to shut down because of the inefficient handling. Quality of input waste collected from the urban local bodies, which includes the solid waste which is not segregated, which the segregation is not proper, the collection is not proper. So that's one of the issue which government is already addressing. Reaching the right players, so identifying the right players for Indian market, including the suppliers or even the local bodies, local manufacturers of waste to energy, or local collectors. So this is where also people, investors face problems. The tendering process is another challenge wherein we see high bureaucracy, and also the time consuming this tendering process can be from 2 months to 1 year as well. So these are the challenges, but have been there for a while now. And but what we have seen is and where I would like to emphasize or take your attention is to the growth indicators which we have seen, which we are seeing in last 5 to 6 years. So local companies like are exhibiting definitely a strong growth, including IFCL and Ramke Enviro. So I have included example here of Ramke Enviro, which is one of the largest player in India and which is growing at 12% CAGR from during this, let's say 2016 to 2020. They are the estimated revenue of them is around 270 million euros. So we can see that people are the industries is already they are handling around 6 million tons of municipal solid waste across 10 states, and they are with their profit margin and sales, we can see that they're really doing it well. Positive investment flow from invest to energy sector. We are in last month, Eversource acquired 100% of ILNFS environmental segment, which Eversource is the fund manager of Green Growth Equity Fund, which is coming from the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund from India and also the government of UK. So also we have seen the Antony West IPO, which was subscribed 15 times last month. So we definitely see the investment coming, the confidence of investors, which is exhibited based from which is very visible from such kind of investments. Then technology collaborations are definitely, we are seeing lots of Indian companies are seeking to let's say seeking assistance from the global peers who have done it or who have implemented such projects across globe, who have managed the waste not only in developed countries but also in developing countries. So one example here we have seen, which is very recent. In March, Thermax has signed an MOU with Steinmuller in Germany, which is basically as a technology transfer for handling the municipal solid waste and segregating the high calorific value or components from the municipal solid waste. So this is only one example, but we have seen lots of technology collaborations, not only in let's say solid waste of municipal solid waste, but also across waste management, even in plastics, in electronics, in the clean river part of it. So then another growth indicator is the increased RFQ coming from, or let's say increased projects coming from the municipal and state authorities, from the urban bodies like Bangalore, Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad, Delhi. Even now, Uttarakhand has announced 6 projects for waste to energy coming focused on municipal solid waste, which are going to be in cities like Rukhri, Rudrapur, Kashipur, Rishikesh, and Pudwar in Uttarakhand. So we are seeing that all the state authorities or municipal authorities have taken note of the increased importance of waste management in urban cities. Then we also have seen the active interest of large public conglomerates like National Thermal Power Corporation, which is the largest energy producer in India, thermal energy producer in India, and also the IOCL, which they have taken really a good interest in promoting and also implementing the waste to energy plants in India. Now, just to summarize the waste management future and also the road ahead for this, that the government initiatives are there, the regulations are all in place for the waste categories. The recently we have received an advisory on material recovery facility by Ministry of Housing Urban Affairs, which is majorly focused on the the municipal solid waste part of it. Then we have lots of initiatives which are implemented on the larger scale: Clean India, Smart Cities, Amrut Mission, which are Amrut Mission, which is focused on urban transformation. We have also seen rise in public-private partnerships for the waste management. Rapid urbanization, of course, one of the key growth driver. Why the waste management has become such a hot topic, or let's say an important topic to address in the urban areas. Key trends includes the investments, which I have already, let's say, given you some idea on the previous slide. But also, India is financing the startup companies, the new ideas which are coming to the waste to energy sector. The infrastructure financing, government support in the infrastructure finance, and also the subsidy form of it is already there. The government has already extended the support for waste to energy plants. In when it comes to the, let's say, the capital cost, they are financing at 50% of it. The plant capital cost, they have their own conditions, but Saurabh from Invest India will definitely cover it in the next presentation. So looking forward, the waste management industry overall has let's say very high role to play, or let's say it will definitely exhibit lots of opportunities for the investors to come in. Now I would like to hand it over to my colleague Anup, who is a team member of Energy in Mumbai office, and he will take you through the waste to energy potential in biomass industry.
Right. Thank you, Ketan. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Wonderful. Right. So, looking here, I mean, the estimated potential of for biogas in India is about 62 million metric tons per annum. With methane content being roughly about 55 to 60%. Now, with further processing, using technologies such as water scrubbing or even pressure swing absorption technology, uh, we can really look at enhancing the biogas capabilities and generating compressed biogas, wherein the potential or the estimated potential would roughly be around 32 million metric tons per annum, with methane content being over 90%. Now, currently, if you look at the status of where India stands, there are about 12 producers in India, with companies mainly in the dairy and the food processing segment, which are generating about 18,000 metric tons per annum of compressed biogas, which is less than even 1.1% of the total potential in India. Moving to the next slide. Further, if we focus on the agro-based biomass potential, now biofuel relevant agro production in India stood at about 717,000 million metric tons per annum, which largely includes sugarcane, food grains, and oil seeds. This would roughly translate into a biomass, or agricultural waste potential of about 234 million metric tons per annum, and finally result in a biogas potential of about 14 million metric tons per annum, which is about 23% of the total biogas potential. The other key sources for biogas being municipal waste and also the cattle waste. Moving to the next slide, Kiran. Looking at the key challenges now for the biomass sector, we basically looking at two separate segments. One is from a feedstock challenge perspective, and the other is from the supply and application challenges. Now, from a feedstock side, one is the small and marginal farm holdings, wherein high incidence of marginal farmers is resulting in a very fragmented kind of a land holding, which results in waste collection, agro waste collection challenges. The other being is the limited window of the limited window of opportunity for collecting this agro waste, which is typically 10 to 15 days between the harvesting and the sowing cycle, which leads to limited amount of time for waste collection. Then, if you look at it from a competitive power production perspective, the challenges are really different, because you've got really competitive renewable sources like solar and wind in India, which then really inhibits the bio investments in biopower generation. And last but not the least, but the logistics and the storage challenges of really storing all of this agro waste that is being collected, and also the cost associated with the transportation of compressed biogas that is produced beyond about 150 to 200 kilometers. Moving on, finally, if you look at it from the opportunities perspective, largely India offers significant opportunities from a compressed biogas perspective, as well as methanol production perspective. Considering which is driven by the government initiatives and policies towards biofuel implementation. Focusing on compressed biogas, the government has set itself a target of 15 million metric tons per annum, of compressed biogas production by 2025, which is really to replace the use of CNG. And if you look at the currently where we stand, something that I discussed earlier as well, less than 0.1% is what is achieved as of date, which really puts a high value to the potential that is available in the country today. Also, from a methanol production perspective, the demand in India in 2018 was about 2 million metric tons, of which 87% is imported. Biomethanol definitely via green production, I mean, uh, via biomass production is a very has high potential as a green alternative to methanol production overall, wherein there is a lot of ongoing R&D activities from methanol and biomethanol based fuel cell production as well in India. Going further, Ketan, that's it from the waste to energy biomass side in a nutshell. Going further, if you look at it, what are the kind of investment opportunities in the waste to energy segment? So we really look to segregate it across the backend supply, the production process in itself, and finally the post-production supply. From an MSW perspective, we are talking about conveyor systems, the trommels, the magnetic separators, the mechanical loaders, which is mainly from a waste management perspective. From a biomass side, we're talking about the agro equipment, basically the harvesting, threshing equipment, and also the post-harvest agro processing equipment, like say, for example, the balers. The production process in itself, for municipal solid waste, you have shredders, you have got the refuse derived fuel pallet making machines, and the incinerators, wherein technology is quite limited in India. And also from a biomass side, or rather I would put it from a compressed biogas perspective, you have the compressors, that digester technology, also technical textiles, and gas monitoring systems, which will come in high demand going forward. Uh, in the post-production side, one critical challenge that is faced, especially on the power production side, when you're burning, say, RDF, is what do you do with the ash? And this is the ash management is going to be a critical opportunity in India, and also from the biomass side, cascades and storage solutions will be critical from an investment perspective as well.
Yeah. From the services, from the support options perspective, EAC can support in the strategic topics like market transparency to understand the feasibility assessment of regions, technologies, and even the supply feasibility of feedstock, including RDF and biomass availability, and also the quality levels. Not only the availability but also the quality levels required for such plants. Competition benchmarking support, the cooperation partner search and privatization for the waste to energy plants, and also the location assessment for the high potential waste to energy plants installation basis based on the strategic and operational factors. Of course, I know that we have extended our time, so I'll just make it quick here. The references, which includes EAC has supported major energy producers also in the renewable sector and also the conventional ones. Here we have highlighted more renewable projects and the customers which we have supported, which also includes Verbio, Senvion, and Indian companies like Adani. So, and it has been we have been supported them for strategy, M&A, and operational excellence topics, the implementation topics as well. Major focus was on India, Southeast Asia, and also projects in China. So now with that, I'll hand it over to our next speaker, Mr. Saurabh Datta, and Q&A session will be. If you have any questions, we will definitely take it up in the end of our session. So now I'll handing over it to Mr. Saurabh Datta from Invest India. He has more than 11 years of experience in research, engineering, and consulting in the water and wastewater treatment sector. As a part of Waste to Wealth mission team at Invest India, he works with Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India and is involved in identification and evaluation of various technologies for piloting under the Waste to Wealth and Jal Jeevan missions. I'm
Thank you,
making you
Ketan.
I'm making you presenter, Saurabh, so you can share your screen.
Yes, thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, thank you, Ketan. Thank you for inviting me. Very good morning to everyone joining from Germany, and a very good afternoon to everyone joining from India. I'm Saurabh Datta, and I'm representing Invest India today, which is the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency of the Government of India. And within Invest India, I'm representing a very specific team known as the Waste to Wealth Mission, which is a program of the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. Now, just to give you a quick introduction to Invest India, as I mentioned, is the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency, which basically provides knowledge and facilitation support to global companies who want to enter India and set up business projects here. And we provide pro bono services on various aspects on investments across 22 sectors and on various aspects like market research, tax advisory, scouting for location for setting up your project, aftercare services like project expansion, as well as getting any regulatory approvals from various government stakeholders. And we work actively with both the state and the central government. Now, the Waste to Wealth mission is one of the 9 scientific missions of the Prime Minister Science, Technology, Innovation and Advisory Council of the Government of India. It is headed by the Principal Scientific Advisor, and the project management unit of this mission is hosted at Invest India. Now, this mission has a very broad mandate of basically scouting, identifying, testing, and validating various technologies across waste management technologies across land, water, and air. So the objective, the main focus of this mission is to identify technologies which specifically focus on circular economy, which means we not only look for waste management technologies which address the waste pollution, but also focus on circular economy and generating value out of waste. And for dissemination of these technologies, we actively engage with various end users, such as urban local bodies and other government stakeholders. Now, for our work at our mission has a 5-pronged approach, where the first one is identification of various technologies. Now, this identification of technologies, this various waste management technologies has various approaches. One of them, of course, is various companies across the world approaching us through the various Invest India companies. Then we also do our own primary and secondary research for looking for different technologies. And we also conduct various open challenges. Like last year, we conducted an open challenge on finding a technological solution for addressing biomedical waste management, as well as for technologies for cleaning urban water bodies. Both these challenges had received a very good response, and we have received some very interesting applications, out of which a few technologies were selected. We also have an expert panel. Now, this expert panel has members from academia and research institutions, as well as various seasoned professionals from various waste management sectors. So this expert panel reviews the technologies that come to us, and then we shortlist some of them for piloting. Once the technologies are shortlisted, we then work with various we find Sentinel sites. Now, these sites are identified by working with various stakeholders, by working with various government and user agencies. So we contact user agencies who might be looking for technological solutions for different waste management challenges, and we try to map with the technologies that we have shortlisted and find a suitable site for piloting them. And once that site and technology is identified, we leverage various financial resources from both government, private sector, as well as other international tie-ups. Once these technologies are piloted, under the supervision of our expert panel, we look to monitor and evaluate these technologies for a period of 1 year. And during this 1 year, we evaluate these technologies from various operational parameters as well as cost parameters. And after a period of 1 year, the technologies which show promise, we help in scaling up and procurement of these technologies and also onboarding them on various government online platform. We're also in the process of setting up a national database of technologies. This is the Waste to Wealth portal, which shall be coming online next month. And it will be a very authoritative database of various national and international technologies, both on waste management. I'll take you through some of our projects that we are currently under execution. This is a proof of concept pilot plant, which the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor has been jointly doing with a company in BioEndev based in Sweden. So this is a program of converting paddy crop residue to biocoal. This is a 150 kg per hour pilot unit, and this program was launched. This pilot was launched in 2018 and has been running successfully for the last 2 years. And and a major objective of this pilot is to convert paddy crop residues into biocoal as an efficient energy source, and to disseminate the results of the studies that are conducted during this project to various end users like thermal power plants, households, and other small-scale users, so that they can adopt using biocoal as a co-fuel in their further requirement. And this project has been running successfully, and we're now looking in the second phase, where we're looking at scaling up this project and setting up a new pilot at 20,000, which will have a capacity of 20,000 tons per year. This is a model waste technology park that is currently under execution, and it shall be ready in another 2 months' time. It got delayed because of this COVID situation. So this technology park is based in East Delhi, and where a number of solid and liquid waste management technologies are being piloted. One of them is EnviroRise by DESME Denmark, which removes floating solid waste from urban drains. Then we have an indigenous technology called Zapper, which is an auto segregator of mixed municipal solid waste, and it segregates mixed municipal solid waste to combustible and compostable fractions. It's a 10 ton per day plant, and a major advantage of this plant is that a large part of Indian municipal solid waste has a very wet waste component. So this technology reduces the volume fraction of the waste by almost 80%. So that is a very major advantage of this technology. And then there are 2 waste to energy plants based on plasma pyrolysis and gasification. So the waste that is segregated out of the Zapper unit will be fed to these waste to energy plants, which are each are of 1 ton per day capacity. And then we also have a wastewater treatment technology. So this site will not be taking any fresh water for its operations. We shall be taking wastewater from the drain and then treating and recycling and reusing it using a combination of various wastewater technologies. One of them, which is the decentralized wastewater technology called Jokaso STP by Daiki Access Japan. And we also have community behavioral change projects going on here, where we engage with various communities in the nearby areas and educate them on how to deal with waste management in their households. This is a flow diagram for the waste flow diagram of the technology park. So we have the urban drain, which is flowing next to the park, and this is the DESME unit from Denmark, which will be collecting the waste from the drains. This waste will be fed to the pyrolysis plant. This pyrolysis plant has been set up by Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. And here is the auto segregator, which will be fed municipal solid waste collected from various areas of East Delhi, a 10 ton per day plant. And as I mentioned, so the volume of the waste will be reduced by almost 80%. And after the separation of recyclables, then the rest of it, about 1.6 ton per day, will be separately fed to the pyrolysis and the gasification unit. This is another one of our projects that is currently underway. So our Central Road Research Institute of India, we recently, last year, did a study where one of our largest landfills, the Kazipur landfill, which has been overflowing for decades, it was studied that almost 80% of the waste in the landfill is inert waste, and that can be used for road construction. So after several months of studies, we are launching a pilot project of constructing an 800-meter road again in East Delhi, jointly with East Delhi Municipal Corporation. And this will be a 12-meter wide road, and this road will be completely made out of inert waste, which is collected from the Kazipur landfill. And it is expected to consume almost about 25,000 tons of waste. And Larsen, we are in talks with Larsen & Toubro, which is one of the largest EPC companies in India, who will be constructing the road for us. This is another project, which is a barge-mounted amphibious excavator which removes silt and is used for desilting of lakes and urban water bodies. So this is a indigenous technology, and it shall be launched to clean various multiple drains in Delhi. These are some of our other sentiments under consideration, which are at various stages of execution and discussion. One of them is the Dal Lake. You may have heard the Dal Lake in Srinagar, Kashmir, which is a very popular tourist spot. So we are in talks with the Lake Authority there for launching two decentralized sewage management technologies for houseboat sewage management. So houseboats are a major attraction at Dal Lake, but they're also a source of pollution for the Dal Lake. So we have been talking to the Dal Lake Authority for piloting various houseboat sewage management technologies. And we're also talking there is the lake, there's also a lot of growth of weeds in the lake, so which gives it a very unpleasant look. So the Lake Authority had spoke to us and they wanted us to do something about it. So we also are talking to some oil companies like Indian Oil, who have expressed interest in setting up CBG plants based on weeds growing in the Dal Lake. I'll quickly take you to some of the government initiatives and policies in the waste management, waste to energy sector. So the solid waste management rules in 2016 clearly state that the municipal authorities are responsible for construction, operation, and maintenance of solid waste processing facilities and associated infrastructure. And the focus will always be on decentralized processing to minimize the cost and environmental impact of waste transportation. And any industry which is located within a 100-kilometer distance of a solid waste management plant will be required to meet 5% of the fuel requirement using RDF derived from municipal solid waste. And as this figure will tell you that waste to energy is an option which comes into play only when all options for recycling, reducing, recycling, and reusing all waste options have been adopted, and only then waste to energy we go for waste to energy, because waste to energy is quite an expensive option of generating energy. The solid waste management rules also state that any non-recycled waste having calorific value of 1500 kilocalories per kg or more shall not go to the landfills and shall be used for making RDF pellets. And waste for having high calorific value shall be used for co-processing in cement or thermal power plants. The project developers who wants to set up a waste to energy plant shall have to submit their applications to state pollution control boards, who will then review their application and then respond within a month. And the proven technologies, as Ketan already mentioned, for waste to energies are incineration and biomethanation in India, and pyrolysis and gasification, which have found acceptance in many other countries, are yet to be proven in Indian conditions. And that is the reason why we are setting up the East Delhi Technology Park that I showed you earlier. We are setting up that small pyrolysis and gasification unit there. So that will be a good case study to understand the feasibility of this technology for addressing municipal solid waste to energy scenario. And one of the things I can also tell you is that regarding policy engagement that we are doing. So in India, all municipal solid waste to energy plants which are based on incineration. So the Central Pollution Control Board clearly states that the stack height of an incineration plant will have to be 30 meters to meet the various air emission standards. Now, which is obviously required because the incineration plants emit a lot of toxic fumes and SOx, NOx, and various other dioxins and furans. But with the pyrolysis and gasification units, they don't emit these toxic fumes because they operate at a very high temperature. Like plasma pyrolysis operates at 10,000 degrees centigrade, and it operates in a non-oxygen environment. So it does not generate any toxic fumes. So we are also engaging. We have started to engage with the Central Pollution Control Board to change the norms for gasification and pyrolysis unit, because they are clubbing both of them together. Both the gasification pyrolysis unit, they are also clubbing them with the incineration units, but they are different technologies and their final outcome is different. So we are engaging with the Central Pollution Control Board that we don't require to install a 30-meter height stack for this gasifier unit. Instead, an 8-meter height stack would be enough, and this would reduce the project cost as well as improve the feasibility of the project. Then we have the program on energy. We also have the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy as a program of energy generation from urban, industrial, and agricultural waste residues, and municipal solid waste. The ministry has it's renewed every year, and the ministry has allocated a financial assistance amount of 54 million euros for a physical target of waste to energy equivalent of 257 megawatts. So the scope of the project focuses on installation of biogas production plants, generation of power from biogas, installation of biogas gasifiers for captive power meeting captive power and need requirement, and installation of waste to energy plants based on municipal solid waste. And to point to note is that out of the 54 million euros that has been allocated for this financial assistance, more than 90% of this amount is actually allocated for waste to energy plants based on municipal solid waste. The kind of projects that will be acceptable for receiving this financial assistance are the power generation projects based on incineration, gasification, pyrolysis, or a gasification or a combination of these technologies based on municipal solid waste. And 25% mixing of biomass is allowed. Thing to note is that any biogas generation unit based on distillery effluents and any fossil fuel residues will not be eligible for financial assistance. And also eligible are bio-CNG and biomass gasification projects for receiving this financial support. This table gives an overview of some of the financial assistance that the government is allocated. This will the fourth row will tell you that almost 565,000 euros per megawatt has been allocated for the project developer for waste to energy plant based on municipal solid waste. This is another flagship program of the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, SATAT, which is Sustainable Alternative Towards Affordable Transportation. This is a program which targets the production of compressed biogas from biomass residues and any other marine waste residues, for example, and create and produce compressed biogas as a sustainable transportation fuel. So a lot of public sector oil marketing companies like Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum, and a lot of private players like Adani Gas, JVM Group, and Praj Industries have come together for setting up these projects. And 600 letter of intent has been sent for 600 plants, and MOUs have been signed for 900 plants. And these the oil marketing companies are inviting more and more interest from private sector party companies and entrepreneurs to set up CBG plants. So this there's almost a 3.4 billion euros investment is currently underway by the government. We're also setting up pipeline networks as well as fuel stations, and there's a target of 5,000 CBG plants by the end of 2023-24.
Okay.
Sorry, Chetan, you saying something?
Once he's done.
So we also have the Haryana Bioenergy Policy, which was set up in 2018. So as you may have read in the news that the northern states of Haryana, Punjab, and Delhi have faced this pollution, air pollution issue every year due to crop stubble burning. And this has been a recurring issue over the number of years, and therefore a number of policies have been drafted by the northern states to convert paddy crop residue into energy. So the state of Haryana has a surplus biomass availability of almost 8,000 tons, and which has the potential to generate 1,000 megawatt of power and 11.5 lakh tons of bio-CNG. So there are a number of policies the Haryana government as well as the state of Punjab, they have set up a number of biomass plants, which Ketan and Anup already mentioned. And there are a number of policies which they are favoring, inviting entrepreneurs to set up these biomass plants based on paddy crop residue. And even the National Thermal Power Corporation, we have been discussing with them, they have clearly stated that they can use paddy crop up to 5% as a co-fuel in the thermal power plants, and they're aiming to procure at least 5 million tons of biomass pellets for co-firing in the power projects. So this policy aims at creating a conducive environment to attract private investment and for biomass-based projects. And there's a proposed target of at least 150 megawatt biomass-based power projects for 2022. And things to note is that only air-cooled power projects, only with air-cooled condensers will be allowed under this policy. And the power tariffs will be decided through a competitive bidding route, reverse bidding route, and the purchase power agreement will be valid for at least 35 years or the plant life, whichever is earlier. So the Haryana Renewable Energy Development Agency is the nodal authority, and all applications have to be submitted to them. And finally, we also have the National Hydrogen Mission, something along the lines of the National Hydrogen Strategy of Germany. This was formally announced the budget this year, and this aims for generation of green hydrogen and for projects which aim at decentralized production, storage, and transport of green hydrogen. So the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy already is supporting a lot of programs based on R&D and pilot projects for production of hydrogen in industry and academia. And Indian Oil Corporation again has been setting up hydrogen production units. Currently, they are doing it on grey hydrogen, but along with other public sector marketing companies, public sector oil companies like HPCL and BPCL, they're also setting up 5 other projects for green hydrogen production. And they're looking at all the technologies of green hydrogen production, like using electrolysis of water, as well as from steam reforming of methane that is derived from biomass. And currently, Indian Oil is running 50 buses in Delhi with hydrogen as a co-fuel. And they also have 2 hydrogen refilling stations have been set up in India. One, the Indian Oil R&D Center in Faridabad, and another at the National Institute of Solar Energy in Gurgaon. And a lot of other large private players like Reliance, Tata, and Mahindra, they are also engaging with the government and have shown interest in joining this national hydrogen mission. So with that, I'll thank you, and I welcome and invite all the German Mittelstand companies, if not all, at least some of them, to come to India and explore business opportunities here. And the waste to energy market is a huge market in India, and it's not only address the waste management challenges globally, but also there's a lot of generation to create wealth. Invest India will always be look forward to interact with you and help you facilitate your journey in this process. Thank you. Thank you, Ketan, over to you.
Thank you, Saurabh, for giving us an overview on government regulations on the waste to energy sector in India. Now, without losing in time, we would like to appoint Mr. Ashish Kumar. We would like to invite Mr. Ashish Kumar. He's a partner of Eurassia Consulting from last 15 years. He has been advising both medium-sized companies and multinational corporations on strategy and market entry issues with a focus on regions in India and Southeast Asia. Ashish has worked, before joining EAC, he has worked with Indian Navy almost 10 years. In addition, he has, to his MSc in engineering, Ashish also holds an MBA degree from HHL Leipzig Graduate School of Management. He's playing a dual role right now, and he's also Verbio's India Managing Director. He has played very crucial role to ensure systematic assessment of all business dynamics to set up a plant of Verbio biofuel in India. Now, Ashish, we would like to address few questions which will give us an understanding, or let's say which will share your investment experience of setting up Verbio plant in India. I have also given you presentation rights, so whenever you feel to share, or there is any necessary to share any pictures or presentations, just feel free to show your screen. So first question, Ashish, is why Verbio AG has chose India as their first location outside Europe to set up the biofuel plant?
Right, Ketan. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning to the participants from Europe. Ketan, am I audible?
Yes, Ashish.
Okay. So before I answer that question, let me just quickly introduce Verbio to you. Verbio is basically a leading independent bioenergy producer headquartered in Germany. It's a 100% biofuel producing company, which basically means we have 3 core products, that is bioethanol, biomethane, and biodiesel. The company is more mid-sized, getting close to €1 billion mark now. And what we are doing in India is we are setting up India's largest biofuel plant in Punjab. This will be a bio-CNG unit. And to answer Ketan, why did we choose India? Actually, India was very much on the radar of Verbio for quite some time. But to be but nothing very concrete happened till the time, the policies were kind of becoming a little bit more concrete. So the Make in India Mittelstand program was kind of a trigger point for Verbio as well. In fact, Verbio was one of the first few members of the program. And that's when things started moving a little bit more in a systematic manner. And the first, let's say, concrete step which Verbio did was in terms of incorporating the company in India. That was done in September 2016. So I have been associated from the very beginning. Why India? Clearly from 2 points of view. I mean, from an agricultural feedstock point of view, it's in abundance. though, which is the ironical part is that though the feedstock is in abundance, but almost a negligible share of that feedstock is being utilized in the biofuel sector. So that is one. So there is a huge opportunity when it comes to the feedstock availability. The second part is us being biofuel producers. Biomethane, as I said, biomethane is one of our core products. So, and CNG being a very attractive fuel for the Indian market. The CNG market has been growing exponentially as far as India is concerned, and especially if we look into the price differential today with the competing fuels like petrol or diesel. CNG is extremely competitive with almost 40% price advantage. So I think it really makes the decision making relatively simpler. That on one side, the supply side, you have the feedstock, and then you have a market for the end product. Yes, of course, there are a lot of puzzles in between, but let's say to keep the picture very simple, you have the supply side secure, you have the demand side, growing exponentially. So that was, let's say, the key deciding factor.
Thanks. Moving to the next question, Ashish, what was Verbio's plan for India, and what did you have to change or adapt post your detailed assessment done in the market, and now how you're progressing with it?
So actually, our first plan was to set up a plant from a power production point of view. Our first step was not to get directly into the bio-CNG or the biofuel production. It was more of a de-risking strategy, so that we set up a plant, we secure the PPA because the pricing which were being offered were quite attractive at that point in time. So the idea was that let's set up the first unit from a pure power production point of view, and the step 2 would be to get into the biofuel market. But then we had a lot of meetings and discussions with the Indian government, with the ministries involved, MNRE and a couple of other organizations, and we were advised that, okay, at least on paper, or let's say practically speaking also, India is a power surplus country, and if biofuel is the core business, then why not take it in the step 1 and not postpone it for a step 2. And plus, if we look at the PPAs which are being executed today at the pricing what we have for solar and for other sectors,
Yeah.
I mean, having a PPA of 7-8 rupees, it is really difficult to sustain for a long term. So I think it was a very well taken advice at that point in time that we didn't get into the power part, and we straight away got into the biofuel part. So that was a good decision taken at that point in time.
Okay.
But Ashish, something more I've been throwing light on. We talked about feedstock. So I mean, what are the key challenges faced while securing a required quantity of feedstock as per the specified quality for your plant, and how do you look to really address these kind of challenges?
Right. So Anup, I mean, let's understand the dynamics of the plant requirement. We, as I said, it's the largest unit in India, which means our consumption of feedstock is roughly around 100,000 tons per year. That's quite a huge volume from a single source point of view. That is the challenge related to the volume, right? But the bigger challenge is, at least at the time when we entered the market, there was almost no awareness of an application like biofuel application. There was straw being collected in limited amounts for power industry or for really small scale industries. A pure bio-CNG unit, which is based on straw technology, this is going to be the first unit. So what it means in terms of challenge is to make people aware of the quality requirements of the straw which is needed for a biofuel production unit, because we are ultimately not going to burn it. It is going to go through an anaerobic digestion process, which means the quality, or let's say the moisture content which is needed in the straw has to be extremely low. Now that becomes a challenge, because if people who are familiar with it, the paddy window, the harvesting window is very limited. You get, let's say, anything between 45 to 60 days. And in those 60 days, you have to basically collect the entire year's feedstock. Now, that is the challenge. So you have a limited time window, you have high quality requirement. And then on top of it, largely it is manually managed, or let's say not 100% manually managed, but really low tech machinery is utilized. Now that makes it very difficult. So that I would say is really the biggest challenge in terms of limited time, limited automation, and prevalent low quality conditions. Now that is the condition I'm talking about, almost 3 years back. Today it is different. We tried a lot. We have been trying a lot, and we have changed quite a few things. So to address the challenges, what did we do? So we, of course, we started with what the market was doing at that point in time. So we just followed what the market was doing. And we realized this is something which actually should not be done. So we had to set our own standards. We had to set the trends for the market, which meant we realized that until and unless we are really introducing highly automated solutions, we will not be able to gather the kind of volume and the kind of quality requirements we need for our production unit. Which means then you have to deal with another challenge, because these machinery are not locally manufactured in India. So you have to import everything. So most of our machinery, minus the tractors, everything is coming from Germany at the moment. Because we are talking about high-tech equipment like the balers and the rakers and the tedders. Yes, there are low-tech versions of these equipment available, and which are suitable for small-scale industries, but not for a large industrial scale unit like ours. So typically, when you are going through this collection process, there is something called balers, which in India, typically, you make 20 kilogram bales, which can be lifted very easily by hand. But then the volume is huge. So to deal with such low specification, and then also introducing a lot of people into the whole value chain, that becomes very complicated to handle. So we introduced large balers, which means from 20 kilogram, we moved directly to almost 500 kilograms. Now that's a significant jump, and that helped a lot for a large-scale unit like ours. Then, as I spoke about the quality part, we introduced new processes which were never practiced in India. There is a machine called a tedder, which the only job of the tedder is basically to reverse the straw. Because typically what happens is post-harvesting, one side of the straw is sun-dried and the other side of the straw is still wet, and it doesn't meet our moisture requirement. So this machine basically it just reverses the straw. So we leave it on the field for, let's say, anything between 12 hours to 36 hours, and then it's good to be collected. So these are some tweaking which we had to do. So we really had to do from the scratch. And I would say the biggest lesson for us is you have to do it on your own. You cannot really rely on anybody, because not anybody has an experience in the market today to deal with this kind of volume and still be able to deliver a good quality product at a very competitive cost. So yeah, that's I would say, but yes, I should also mention, initially, yes, it was a challenge to also make the farmer aware of, how it is going to be different, because he is impatient during that 60-day period. He wants to clear off his field at the earliest. So when we make him understand that this is our requirement and this is how, the whole process works, we got excellent support. We really got excellent support from the farming community, from all the people around us, from where we are clearing the fields today. So my entire volume of, let's say, 100,000 tons can be managed within a radius of about 10 kilometers of our plant. So I think that's a big step forward for us.
Thank you, Ashish, for answering this question, and it definitely gives us an idea how complicated it was, but how it was addressed, and now it's and tweaked to the your requirements, and now it's working really smooth for you. So it's really great. Uh, uh, and to coming to the next question, I know we are running out of time, but to ask these two questions. What is your, let's say, what are the key top messages or key messages you want to give to our future investors who would like to invest in waste to energy sector in India?
Well, I would say the key would be to do it on your own. I mean, there are going to be a lot of, let's say, I mean, I think that goes for any new sector, that goes for any nascent sector. Till the time we are doing a lot of experiments and learning on the job, I think that really helped us because till the time we were hearing a lot of stories from everybody, but ultimately, and the stories were not very encouraging. So ultimately, we decided to do it on our own and make our own conclusions, and the end was positive. So I think that's some very important learning. The second part I would say is we got really very good support from the government, and this helps a lot, especially for a new sector. Whether we talk at a central level support from MNRE or MOPNG, and I think Saurabh did mention about this Satat initiative, though I was trying to, so we are one of the largest investors as far as Satat is concerned today, and be it center, be it state government, we got excellent support from Punjab Invest, also the local district bodies over here. So I think what we really appreciated that the policymakers were really open to listen to us, open to the change, what we are trying to bring into the market. So that's, I think, very positive, because normally the impression is that, okay, it is going to be bureaucratic and it's India and it's, it's more or less knocking on a closed door. So, but we have so far had a very, very good experience, a very, very promising.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. And Ashish, last question. It was good to see the site, the photograph of your site, which looks huge. So, considering such a huge investment, what is the socio-economic impact on of this such project in state of Punjab or maybe the near areas?
I'm not sure if you could see the site. Let me just try and see if I can some pictures over here. So this is how the site looks like today. Is it visible?
Yes, Ashish.
Yes, very much.
So this is how the site looks like, and this is, you see the feedstock which is being collected.
Okay.
This is roughly around 5,000 tons, which is currently stocked at the site. Now, coming back to what kind of impact we are looking at. Okay, that's interesting because I think.
Ashish, sorry to interrupt. I just wondering, what's the capacity of the plant?
So this is a 33 TPD plant, 33 tons of bio-CNG production per day. And the other number which you might want to know is 100,000 tons of feedstock, as I already mentioned. And of course, yes, I forgot to mention one thing, the biomanure part. This again would be the largest biomanure production facility in India. We will be producing roughly around 550 tons of biomanure per day on full capacity. This will not happen from day one. We are going to be commissioning the plant during this period of July to September, and we'll go full scale, not full scale, but at least we'll get started with 25% of production from September, October onwards, and every 4 to 6 months, additional 25% capacity will be added.
Okay.
Coming to your question.
Sorry, I had a follow-up question. Yeah, I just had a follow-up question to that. What is the arrangements you have made for offtake of the bio-CNG? We already have some plans in place.
Yeah, sure. The Our offtake partner is IOCL. So I think the LOI is what was shown earlier. We have 6 LOIs with IOCL, and so that is the offtake partner. And currently, we are also in discussions with GAIL for since it's a huge capacity. There could be some limitations when it comes to offtake. So let's say some offtake will also be secured by GAIL, which will be taken over by the City Gas Distribution Network partner. So this is how it's going to go.
Okay, thank you.
Ketan, coming back to your question, in terms of the socio-economic impact, I mean, we did our own calculations related to that, and what we come to is, in terms of, I think the biggest impact, what the people will get to experience, at least in the nearby, regions, the kind of impact it will have on the environment or the air pollution. So if we talk about the stubble burning, which is a pretty hot topic, especially in the later part of the year. So a plant like this will basically reduce about 150,000 metric tons of pollutants. It will reduce about 20,000 metric tons of fly ash. And if I talk about environmental impact at the, let's say, end product sale, when we talk about bio-CNG as a replacement to petrol or diesel, that will further reduce about roughly around 110 to 120,000 metric tons of pollutants. So there is a huge impact such units will have on the environment. Then comes the impact on the, let's say, overall economic point of view. A large industrial scale unit like this will create roughly around 1,000 jobs, both direct and indirect, and more or less it's a 40-60 ratio. There is quite a significant impact on the savings it will lead at a healthcare spend point of view. We have done some work on that aspect also, that what is the immediate, let's say, impact it will have on the healthcare spend saving. Then, of course, the farmers, a unit like this, almost 5,000 farmer families will get benefited who are currently burning their fields, which will basically lead to about 30,000 acres of land, which will be free of stubble burning. Now, that's a huge impact, what we talk about today, right? And when we talk about the biomanure part, which again, this is something which will take some time, because as I said, 100% production will take roughly between 12 to 18 months. But when this happens, it will benefit roughly around 3,000 acres of land, wherein this biomanure will also be going, right? So, and maybe to conclude with the, I mean, we talk about bio-CNG being, I mean, it has to basically substitute petrol or diesel, which is ultimately getting imported. So it has a very positive impact on the import substitution, which to quantify is roughly around $6 million. That is the forex saving we will have at a trade level, right? And of course, it also leads to certain kind of a tax revenue collection. So these are some significant plus points for the not necessarily from an investor's standpoint, but what kind of socio-economic and environmental benefits such units will basically result in for the local region, the local state government, and overall at a country level.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you for all the experiences you have and shared about your investment experience of Verbio. I hope it has made a very positive impact on the investors, and also help them to understand the how they can address the how they can approach the Indian market. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving to the final section, Q&A. If you have any questions, you can just click on raised hand icon, or so we can take up your questions. I can unmute you, and or even you can type it in the question box in the chat section. So I don't see any questions coming in, gentlemen. So I can understand this is lots of information we have discussed in last 1 and 15 minutes, which will take some time to digest. So what we are going to do is we are going to share the recorded version with you as well, along with the presentations we have presented. So in case you have any questions, uh, 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 you can always write us on imam@indianembassy.de. And thank you very much, Ashish. Thank you very much, Saurabh, Anup, for joining today's webinar. And I would like to thank you very much for that. Let's and we look forward to welcome you in the future webinar of Embassy of India and Make in India Middle Stand program. Thank you. Have a nice day, all of you. Bye bye.
Thank you, Ketan, for inviting me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Anup. Thank you, Ashish. Bye.
Thank you.
Hello, Ashish.